I want to welcome all of you this evening. My name is John Fitzgerald. I'm with Mankato Road, and we are pleased as an organization to bring to you tonight the second of our two candidate forums. There have been some other opportunities as well for you to get to know candidates online at our website. We have profiles on each of these candidates, questions they've answered. There was also a forum last night, and I believe there might be another one being scheduled as well, but I'm not sure of the details on that. Tonight, let me explain to you a little bit about what's going to occur tonight. We got a little bit of an interesting twist tonight for you, but it seems fitting with one of the election questions this year having to do with technology in the school district. It seems fitting that we would have one of the school board candidates Skyping in this evening and participating. So while Sarah's away, she did want to participate in tonight's forum. So she is going to participate. You're not going to be able to see her, but you'll be able to hear her. She'll be able to hear the discussion and be able to participate best we can along with everybody else. There'll be a few hiccups here or there, but pardon us as we try to figure out how to make sure the sound comes through and you can hear everything. Let me explain to you how the format goes for those of you that haven't been to one of our forums yet. In a few minutes, I'll turn the podium over to Yvonne Caribou, who will serve as the moderator for tonight's forum. And the way the process will work is we're very deliberate in the way we've arranged the candidates. They're arranged alphabetically. So that seems fair, right? And when we start the question and answer process, Yvonne will ask a question. And it will start with probably the first person alphabetically, wherever she decides to start from. And it will just proceed down the list. And on the next question, Yvonne will start with the next person in order. So everybody will get an opportunity, of course, to be the first and the last at some point as we go through the evening. Now, at the beginning, we'll give them a chance to introduce themselves. And we'll give them no more than 90 seconds to do that. And then when we get to the questions, they'll be given 60 seconds for each question to answer that question. We'll have a timer. Amy, who's sitting in the front, will alert them when they have 30 seconds left, and she'll hold up a stop sign when they get to the end. And that's our polite way of saying, okay, try to close your conversation. And if it goes on too long, of course, you know that Yvonne will be very gentle and try to bring it to a close in a hurry. She may have to help Sarah a little bit so she can't see Amy. You have available to you half sheets of paper, or should be available to you. If you have a question you want to ask, we want you to write that question down. As you write a question, I want to give you one ground rule related to that question. Please make sure you write your question in a way that is directed at all candidates. So you may be interested in what one or two people has to say about something, but the question needs to be phrased, or Dan, who's walking around now, who will receive the questions, he'll reframe that question to make sure it's a question that Yvonne can then ask the entire panel. Dan will collect your questions, and I'll circulate around as well and help collect them. So if you think of something as we're progressing through the forum, and you write that out, or you need another question slip, you just raise your hand, I'll grab it, I'll bring it to Dan. Dan's job, he'll look through those questions, and he'll just try to order them with some semblance of maybe the subject matter that we've selected for this evening, which is really about student achievement and success. That's the focus of tonight's forum. For some of you, this might be your first opportunity to visit with the candidates. We don't want to restrict you from asking a question that perhaps they've even been asked and answered already. But if you can focus some questions this evening on student achievement and success, that's the primary focus of tonight's conversation. And Yvonne has about 9 questions in reserve she can ask that we've pre-published that the candidates have seen as well. There's about an hour and a half or less this evening, so we'll legitimately probably get through about 10 questions. So I'd encourage you, if you have a question you want to ask, make sure you write that down and submit that early, because there won't be a lot of time to necessarily get lots of questions in, unless the candidates are not long-winded and short-winded, and they conclude their answers even quicker. At the very end, we'll give them about 30 seconds to give you sort of a speed round to tell you what's the one last thing they want to leave with you as you leave here tonight and think about the upcoming election and who it is you want to vote for in that election. Okay, I think I covered all of our ground rules. Oh, they do have what's called a wild card. Did I touch on that? Yeah, wild card? Yeah. So they'll be able to play that wild card if they have more than 60 seconds they want to say. They can play that wild card one time when it really is burning for them to get more information out. Or maybe somebody has said something that sparks another answer for them, or they want to counter that answer. They can play that wild card one time and give themselves an extra 60 seconds to do that. Okay? Anything else we missed? Yvonne? Okay, so I give you Yvonne Caribou, who's one of our public affairs volunteers, and she'll serve as your moderator for the rest of the evening. Thank you, Yvonne.
evening, everyone. Let's start by introducing. Start off with the introduction.
First of all, can you hear me without the microphone?
Yes.
Way back in the back?
Yes.
Okay. 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 My name is Judy Brandon. I am currently the clerk on the school board. I've been in Mankato for 42 years. I've been a professional educator for 30 of those years. Currently, I'm retired. And I've been a school board member for 11 years, although not consecutively. I was on the school board for 6 years in the late 1970s, early 1980s. Resigned from the school board then to take a job with the district, and after I retired, I got back on the school board and most recently have spent 5 years on the school board. I've always been passionate about education. Probably back when I was in first grade and came home every day after school and taught my 4-year-old sister how to read right along with me. Education's just been a part of my life and part of who I am. I think that's one of the reasons that after I retired, going on the school board was a good fit. I see being on the school board as a journey, and as part of this journey, we've hired a superintendent. We have implemented a strategic road plan, strategic road map. We have built Rosa Parks Elementary School, but the journey's not ended, and I'd like an opportunity to continue on the journey for another 4 years.
Hi, my name is Jody Forey. I am a resident of Mankato, have been for about 43 years. I am the gambling manager for the Governors Drum Bugle Corps. I've been in the Govies for 22 years playing baritone and then this year mellophone. I was also in 1 year stint in a junior corps that came through this summer and actually stayed here at Mankato East High School. I was a teacher here in Mankato Public Schools for 10 years. I worked at Harry Meyering Center for 15 years. And I have a Bachelor of Education from Mankato State University. I have my Master's in Education in Developmental Disabilities from the University of Minnesota. I have a Physical Health Disability Certificate licensure that I'm going to from St. Cloud State University. Took most of those courses online, never really stepped in at St. Cloud State. Went to West High School for my high school years, and I just am always an active person. Sarah, here.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, it's your turn. Go ahead.
My name is Sarah Hanson, and thank you for indulging me tonight. I am running for school because the learning curve the first 2 years of my first term was really pretty steep, and I feel like I'm really hitting the ground running now on a number of issues that matter a lot to me, and I'd like the opportunity to serve for 4 more years. I have a particular interest in kindergarten readiness, and I have served on a number of committees related to that, and we are making a lot of progress in that area, and I would like to continue to serve to maintain our physical stability, but also because I'd like to carry that work on further. And I will pass it to Ann. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Don't know if I have it off if you lay it down. My name is Ann Hendricks. I'm currently an incumbent on the board. I've been on the school board for 15 years. My current position is that of board chair. I am a full-time special education teacher in St. Peter. St. Peter Public Schools owns my contract. However, the site that I work at is the Minnesota Security Hospital, where I work on a particular unit that houses mentally ill and dangerous young men. So that's where I spend my days when I'm not doing things with the school board. I also am on a number of committees in the school district, as all of the board members are. I serve on the legislative committee. I serve with the Minnesota High School League. I am on the Region 9 Development Commission. Plus, I have a number of schools that are part of what I do and what I attend to as a school board member.
I would like to continue to serve on the school board, and we'll have that opportunity to kind of wrap us up at the end of this meeting as well tonight. But I think that there are some things ahead of us that I want to participate in, and part of that is our long-range planning.
Good evening. My name is Tom Eckstein. I am currently the school board treasurer. I've had that position for the last 2 years, finishing up my first 4-year term on the school board. I've been in Mankato since 1986. I am married. I have 4 children, 2 daughters in college, and 2 boys that attend East High School here. I have a degree in business administration, and for the last 32 years I've been in the insurance business and own my own agency. My wife and I own it. I'm also a certified insurance counselor. The reason I wanted to originally run for school board is I had 3 children at the time in the Mankato School District. We were in the process. I knew Mr. Waltman was going to be retiring. He kind of indicated that, and I wanted to be part of that process of hiring a new superintendent. I'm very proud of the person that we have in place there now. I would like to continue being on the school board. I think that, as Ann had mentioned, there's some 5-year long-range goals that we need to look ahead for. We're a growing school district. Space needs are an issue. Money is always an issue. But I think we all have various talents on the school board right now. I think it's a very good mix. Some of my talents lie in the financial sides of it and doing building and long-range planning management.
I think I'm okay.
Okay.
But that's okay.
I never thought of that.
Okay. That's okay.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Abdi Sabri, and I'm originally from Somalia. However, I've lived in the U.S. for about 30 years, mostly in big metropolitan cities. And for about 2.5 years ago, I've moved here for reasons, other than living in the cold weather. We lived in, Atlanta, Georgia, and the doctors told us that my little kids could not put up with the pollution in Atlanta, Georgia. So that's why we moved here. Fortunately, I knew someone here, and I called around the country, and Mankato seemed attractive. I don't know why, but and I moved here, and I fell in love with the place. And my passion has always been to help others my entire life. And when I came here, coming from southeast of the United States and coming to the Midwest, it was really a big change for me. It was in a positive way, and the southeast is very much everybody for themselves. And when I came here, I found out there's a sense of community that really induces you to even do more, even though I always liked helping others. For that reason, I had the opportunity to start a new nonprofit. I was one of the founders of African Family Education Center, a nonprofit that serves the refugee population here in Mankato from Sudan and Somalia through education. I'm going to use my white card. And we have established that organization, and we've done many projects. And the mission of the organization is to provide faster integration through education. And we've done many educational projects, including one here at East High. It was the after-school program for low-income kids. And we tried to help. We hired the ELL teachers that helped them during the day, and we gave them 6 extra hours a week so that they can make a difference and bring them up to the standard. I've also worked with South Central College to establish a science boot camp for low-income kids. We did that, over the last summer, and we have enticed kids, to love science by doing hands-on. And one of the things they were able to do was, build things with their hands, and they really got excited. And I get this stop sign. There are many things that I'm passionate about that I want to contribute to the school. And there are many things that I cannot say them all, but I'm going to say at least 3 things that I'm very passionate about that I want to help with the school district. Is introducing new technology to our school, so we can be one of the first globally competitive, small area. And our area is really wonderful. There's no reason why we can't do that. The other thing that I want to do and help with is early childhood education. Everybody knows that early childhood is very important and sets you up for success for the rest of your life. So we cannot afford to leave any of our children behind. I also want to help in the area of targeting kids that really have performing lower than the rest of the kids. Targeted programs. I know there are some programs already in the district where we can really expand and improve and make sure that everybody succeeds and set up for a globally competitive future. Thank you very much.
My name is Thad Shunkwell, and my journey in Mankato started about 10 years ago when I was enrolled to go to school here prior to September 11, 2001. Well, September 11, 2001 happened, and I was a part of the Minnesota Army National Guard, so I was sent overseas for a year in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. So I got my start here shortly after that, my year overseas. I came from my undergrad. I continued on to my master's in mental health counseling, and I'm currently finishing my doctorate in the mental health program now as well. Full-time, I work in St. Peter at the Regional Treatment Center with Ann. I'm a clinical therapist on the unit, and so I work with some of the same population that Ann serves. I also teach adjunct at MSU in both the counseling and the sociology departments. I'm also, again, a member of the Minnesota Army National Guard as an Army officer. My motivation for running for school board is sitting right back there. Half of my family, my little guy back there, and we have another one at home. And so that's what motivates me to be here, is to ensure that my kids and the kids of District 77 continue to get the excellent education they've already been afforded. And I've also, I want to give back to the local community. I've had the privilege of giving back to the country, and I want to give that back locally here as well. So I would appreciate an opportunity to serve District 77 as a member of the school board.
Sorry, just had a technical difficulty. The computer was sitting too long and timed out. We lost Sarah. Here we go. Sarah, do we have you back?
We do, sorry for the interruption.
That's all right, no problem. I think the computer just timed out. We'll touch the keypad every once in a while to keep you here. I'm going to have you answer the next question while we got you. Just in case. So we'll start with Sarah. This is a question from the audience. Many schools in Minnesota have site councils, and some states require them by law. Site councils are a step above PTOs and help guide big picture decisions that are often parent administration run. Why is there no such structure in place here? And is that something you as a school board member are open to exploring in each of our schools?
I'd like to clarify the question.
Sure.
If I understood correctly, you're asking why we don't have set councils?
I believe that's the
And if
question.
I would support them?
Yes.
This is not an area where I'm an expert, but it's my understanding that we do have city councils in each building. And they build leadership, workers include the principal as well as teachers across all grade levels and specialty areas. And they work under the direction of the superintendent to support strategic plan, looking at what achieved results need to happen in that specific building. And it's my understanding that process is working well. So I'm not clear on what information the person who asked the question has, but it's my understanding we do have those and I do support them. I believe that's where change happens at the individual, of course, the individual classroom level, but also at the building level, because that's where the rubber hits the road. And it's needed in terms of emphasis in one building might be slightly different than in another building. And as a school board member, I've enjoyed hearing the updates that these site councils give the school board every year about what is happening and where their challenges are in terms of student achievement. So I believe that process works.
Thanks, Sarah. We're at 60 seconds. Thanks. Ann?
I would agree with Sarah's comment. We do have site councils. Probably our most active site council that is called that specifically is at Bridges School in West Mankato. We also have our leadership councils and our leadership teams in each one of our elementary schools, as well as our secondary schools. Sarah's comment about how this is where we as a board, gather our information, how we get that information to us at board meetings is a critical piece to us. It's that connection that we as a board have. We've talked a number of times about the role of a school board, and ours is not to come in and micromanage. Ours is to take the advice, ours is to gather information and adjust our decisions as we need to along the way. Our job is policy and governance. So the site councils and leadership teams that we have already developed in the district are an integral part of that. We also have the Student Advisory Council that is a student-based 7 through 12 group that leads us every year. They're about to start up here this next week.
I don't know whether you call it a site council or leadership teams. That's like, to me, it's like calling pop soda. So it's just a difference of names. And, I think all of our buildings can be very proud of their leadership teams, is what we call them. They all get the opportunity to address what needs are in their building. Every building is different because of the makeup of their students. So they get to address their particular needs through the strategic roadmap. We as a board get to hear how they're addressing those needs. Once a year, they come to the school board with their leadership team, talk to us about what's happened in the past, what the goals are, and those are one of the great things that we as a board get to experience. So I don't know if site councils are a real issue or not.
I believe that site council or any other opportunity for people to be part of the public education system is a great idea. I'm a very active parent, and I did not know about site councils really, and maybe we need to advertise more and inform parents and the community better, and so that people have the opportunity to be part of that program. I consider myself very active. I know everybody, including the entire board of Sherry Allen, and all the principals and teachers, and I did not know. So I think maybe that's something we need to address and let everyone know that the opportunity is there for people to get involved in members.
Yeah, I would agree with Sabdi in that I completely support site councils and completely support if they're already going on. However, also as a parent in the community, I was not aware of these organizations as well. I think that it is important to get a collective voice from everybody in the community. This is our community school. And we need to be hearing the voices and continue to funnel that information to the policymakers, but also to the folks who are in leadership who make those decisions on the ground. Like Anna has said, that the board's goal is not to micromanage the individual schools, but to provide direction for the leadership that they can carry out the strategic roadmap that has already been designed by the school board.
You've heard from the candidates, many of whom have mentioned that we do have school site councils. Just to expand that a little bit, the school site councils develop site plans for the building. They allocate the resources that are given to the building, and they examine school data so that they know in what direction to lead the school staff. The site council at Bridges is slightly different because Bridges is a unique school under a unique agreement with the district. But buildings do have the choice of having parents on their site council, and over the past many years, some of them have and some of them haven't, and some of them have had them and then chosen not to have them. There is a data privacy issue when site councils are examining school data, so we do need to be careful about that.
Well, I believe that, I know that Mankato East High School has a building leadership team, or they've changed the name. Then also in special education, they also have the different categories, such as a team that monitors special education needs. And they try the best they can to try to get resources from all the different disability categories instead of just one different category. But I do think that those building leadership teams, I've seen them in action. They get together quite a bit, and I'm not sure how they're chosen, or if they've chosen people from outside of the area, but I guess it'll be something to think about.
Thanks, everyone. Jody, I'll have you start this. What is the appropriate role of assessment in improving student achievement? The appropriate role of assessment.
from poring over some of the assessment pieces, such as those grad standards tests and those NWEAs, sometimes those assessments can be useful as far as targeting what kind of needs the students need. Now, I guess sometimes when it comes to assessment, we have to think about whether or not the data is reliable and valid to the needs of our kids here in Mankato. Now, I know that people always make sure that we are getting accurate data. However, just sometimes the data isn't the whole picture. So I guess I would like to look at that as far as assessment being a part of that, but not the whole part.
Sarah? Right there, Sarah. Right here.
Okay, I'm actually also a parent. I have 3 children in the district, and like any parent, a lot of needs make up who those children are, and that's true of all 7,400 kids that are in our district. And assessment data is one piece of information, and it plays an important role in terms on an individual basis of tracking how a student is doing, and it makes an important piece of information for school directional from an individual level and at the school, for the whole grade or for the whole class. But I don't think it makes up everything we need to know. That's why we have unit tests. That's why we observe how kids act and interact in class. And pulling all of those pieces of information together, we can work individually and at grade level to make the best decision so that students are moving forward and achieve their growth targets. And can I double check that you can hear me easily?
We can hear you, Sarah. Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
So
thank
that's my take on that. Assessment is important, but it's really not the whole picture.
Okay, thank you. One note, Sarah, as we go forward, as you begin speaking each time, start slowly. When you speak quickly at the very beginning, you cut out a little bit. So just let you know that as we go forward. We hear you very clearly toward the end of your speaking, not as much at the beginning.
Yvonne, would you read the question again, please? Sure.
What is the appropriate role of assessment in improving student achievement?
Assessment takes on so many different parts, and I totally agree with Sarah that it's one snapshot, it's one piece of information about every individual student, and we do try very hard to keep that in mind. Assessment is tied to our funding, assessment is tied to our curriculum direction. Assessment gives us information as we help staff hone their skills and develop the skills that are needed in our classrooms, in all of our buildings, all of the time. Assessment is only the one piece. We have that ongoing piece that happens in the classroom on a day-to-day basis, and Sarah mentioned the unit tests and those kinds of things. But we have to take that information, those numbers, we have to use that information to drive and to develop the direction of our district.
Role of assessments to improve student achievement. We have several benchmarking tools, which is the NWEAs, the MCA test, which I'm sure your parents have heard all about those already. I think equally important is the parent conferences that people have with their students, because they get a true picture rather than just that snapshot of that particular day. That particular teacher spends a lot of time assessing that student, whether or not they're really getting it. Just because they take a test in one day doesn't mean they are passing or failing. So the student conferences, I think, are equally as important. The role of addressing student achievement, obviously, is that you take the data, find out where they're at. It's like any sport that you measure, and then you find out what's working and what's not. So that would be the role of assessment.
I also agree with everybody else that assessment is one tool or indicators to really get a feel for that particular student. But it's not the whole picture. And that's something that can be used periodically to improve the situation. But the teacher, sometimes required by the state or by any other entity or federal government. And sometimes you can also localize it for your own purpose. And sometimes they may not have the same intent or the same results. So you have to have your own, the best assessment, like was said already, is the one in front of the teacher. You talk to the teacher directly. And I enjoy those moments when you go in front of the teacher with your student. And, you know, that's the labor of love, you know, what they put in these kids. And when you talk to them and you validate that and you reinforce that as a parent. And it's a very useful tool.
I would agree that assessment is a useful tool in evaluating progress. However, you have to ask yourself, what is this really saying? And what do you want to do with it? So now you have this data. What are you going to do? For me, when I examine data, when I look at data, I don't just look back and see what is that, what did that mean when we took that data. I look at it and I say, what does that mean going forward? What are we going to do moving forward with the data that we now have? And I believe that, you know, with accurate data, it can improve the direction of the district and of our students. However, again, like it has been reiterated, that it is just one tool. And I'm also, you know, you look at the quantitative data, the numbers, that gives you one side of things. But I'm also, like Tom, I'm curious about the qualitative things. I want to know what goes on, the day-to-day interactions with our teachers and the face-to-face meetings that we have with our students. So while I do support assessment, I think it's important to not just look at what it meant, but what does it mean going forward.
Assessment is more than the state-required MCA test, or the final test at the end of the year, or even the NWEA tests that we give twice a year. Assessment goes on every single day. Every time the teacher asks a question and looks to see whether one hand is up or 15 hands are up, that is an assessment. Some classes have tools called clickers that tell the teacher immediately whether 15 children in the class know the answer or one student knows the answer. Then the teacher can readjust the teaching to make sure that every student can answer the question, that every student understands the concept that's being taught. So while I agree with everything that's been said about tests, the big tests that happen once a year, let's not lose sight of the fact that our teachers are doing assessment every single day.
And, next question. From the showing of this forum and the lack of interest in this race, it appears that there will be a low election turnout. How will this affect the outcome of the referendum?
I would like to think, from a board standpoint, that the low turnout, because the general public understanding what we're doing, it allows the general public to be supportive of what we're doing. So it's going to affect the referendum, I think, again, gives us the support that we need. I anticipate that our technology referendum will pass, because we are so fiscally responsible about technology. I think that we're so fiscally responsible that our referendum is just to keep going with what we have. It's a loaded question, and I guess I don't know where to go with it from there. I'm going to hand this over to Tom.
The referendum that the moderator, Yvonne, is talking about is our technology referendum. And we're asking to continue that referendum for another 5 years. It's a $500,000 referendum that we use for technology. As far as the effect on it, I think it would be the lower the turnout, the better of our chance of passing the referendum. That's just my personal belief. Because I think those people taking the time and effort to go vote for a school board candidate are the ones that are informed as well, appreciate what the school district does for their students and for this community. So I believe it would be helpful.
I also agree with Tom. You know, people who vote, but there's not any other election but for a school board. People who are passionate about education, and who are already involved, whether they are teachers, staff, or parents who are really involved. They're very passionate, so they know what they're doing when they go to vote. And it would have nothing to possibly. You know, it would be nice to have more people involved in the election, but that's, you know, a fact of life, you know, but the low turnout actually would be more helpful to pass the referendum.
I would agree with what's been said in that those who take time to be invested in this process are those who are invested in the turnout and the progress the district can make. And so I would agree that I think the lower the number, again, is going to represent people who are invested into our children's education and will have the referendum passed, which I think is a good thing for our community. If this was next year, I think we maybe get lost in the fog a little bit. And so I'm actually glad that this is the year that we're doing an off year, that you can really get the time and make that investment into what's going on.
In all the years I've been in Mankato, without a doubt, almost all of the referendums that we have put before the public have passed. And I think this is because there is a tremendous amount of trust in the community about the school district and about how we manage our money and the decisions we make about money. And I think perhaps, hopefully people understand that with this referendum, we're not asking for an increase in the referendum money. We're not putting in a clause that ties the referendum to any kind of a cost of living increase. We are simply asking for a renewal of an existing referendum. And I think people appreciate how we guard the resources that we have and what we play, the burdens we place or don't place on the community at large.
Well, I think that as far as a low election turnout, I guess I'd be kind of surprised because we have 8 candidates, 7 here, I guess, and for only 4 spots. Now, that says 8 people are willing to put themselves out there, and if I know right, I know a lot of the people sitting at this table, like me, have large extended families and large amounts of people in the community supporting us. So it's going to be an interesting race. I don't think the referendum is going to be as low of a turnout as expected.
Sarah?
Are you there, Sarah?
I'm here. I can't anticipate whether there will be low turnout, but I believe when there is low turnout, that really is a reflection on the trust the community has. Much like Judy commented, the community trusts that we are making good decisions and they support what we're doing, and I think it's sort of a you've got this covered, almost a passive vote of support. And when there is mistrust and when there's lots of concern and anxiety, that is when voter turnout goes up because people are worried and then they want to be heard at the poll. I think that the referendum pass, regardless of whether the turnout is high or low, because it's a good decision for our community to renew this levy.
Thank you, sir. Tom, I'll start you with the next question. Instead of directing resources to athletics, winning and losing, I would like physical activity, gymnastics for all children, all their public school years. What do you think of that? Is that a question from the audience?
I'm in favor of physical activity. I have kids just like everybody else that will stand or sit in front of the TV set and play video games as long as you let them. So I think that's a parent issue. I would not be in favor of moving resources from sports because I do believe that that is the other half of education. Whether it be sports or band or any extracurricular activity, to me that's always been the other half of education. I've always told my sons and my daughters that it doesn't matter if you're winning or losing. What matters is if you're doing the best, the experiences you get on that bus ride home, whether you win or lose, is immeasurable in my perspective because you're not taking a test for that. You're gaining those relationships. You're finding out who you are as an individual. You're becoming that person who's going to take that next step, whatever they're doing after high school. So I would not be in favor of taking money away from the sports or any. I think it should be extracurricular activities, not just sports. So.
Physical activity is very good, especially in the United States. But even the children are becoming overweight younger and younger, and it's something that's going to affect the rest of their lives. So diversity in physical activity is very important. So I'm not saying that we should get rid of one sport and use another set of activity, but we should try to accommodate all variety in the types of physical activity that we have, so everybody can have an opportunity to get involved. They can find something that they like.
I would agree that physical activity is essential in elementary schools and in high schools, and I would also agree that I don't think we should direct resources away from the winning and losing sports. I mean, I like Tom. I agree that it's an integral part of high school, whether it's band or choir or speech, debate, whatever the activities that you involve yourself in. It teaches a lot of skills outside of just a physical activity. Students have fun with these activities. It also brings community involvement. Those of you who attended the East-West football game, you can see what that does to our community. It brings people together. To take away from that, I wouldn't agree with that. And I think our students do an outstanding job of even helping with the cost. I had an East softball player stop by my house to sell me a little card of coupons to help fund their organizations. So I thought that's just, they're taking the responsibility on themselves. I don't think that we would solve the problem by cutting from our win or lose type extracurricular activities.
I agree with Thad that sports are just one of the many choices of extracurricular activities that our students can participate in, and all of them serve a purpose, and they engage students, they keep them interested in school, and they are important, and I would not favor redirecting money from them. We do provide physical education classes for many years for our students, and part of that physical education program is to teach students life skills, life physical education skills, sports that they can do as individuals, so that they don't always need to have a team around to be able to engage in physical activity. And so I think that's an important part. Unlike other districts in the state, we have not cut physical education. When we've had to make our budget cuts, physical education has remained a priority in our curriculum.
I would also agree that we need to keep our monies in the physical education. I did write down some things that I thought of as far as primary, as far as that exposure to the physical education, that it supports development kinesthetically. Those kids, when they're moving, they are learning. There's actually a reading program where they're learning their vowels and they're learning things. That is exactly that time in the early to primary grades. In the junior high, they explore what they like. They're in many different things. And then in the senior high, more refinement, whether or not they're in a competitive sport or a cooperative sport. They got to figure out what makes them happy.
Sarah?
I believe that the research shows that students involved in extracurricular activities achieve more in school. So I'm not in favor of taking resources away from extracurricular activities. As far as physical education, if our superintendent came to us as a board and said, I'm in favor of exploring increased physical education because research is now showing that that helps students learn more at all age levels, that would be a difficult decision to make, but that would be something that if our superintendent recommended, I would be in favor of exploring. Either taking the gym time that we have now, K-8 in 2 big blocks a week, and spreading it out so that it's daily, or doing other things that increase how much movement there is during the day. I just believe that students learn more when that happens. We don't know what the impact is of having gym only twice a week. When I was in grade school, 30 years ago, we had it every day. I would be interested in learning more about that. If our strategic plan would suggest that would help us meet our achievement goals.
60 seconds. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks.
I sometimes believe that sports get forth and engaged in those kinds of activities. One of the things that the State High School League has taught me very clearly is that we would like nothing better than to have every single one of our students, 100% of them, involved in a co-curricular activity at school. The sports are visual. We're lucky right now in that we haven't seen the students going back and forth to play practice. I think one could just take a moment and look around this beautiful commons and see what other kinds of things our students are involved in. I do believe that parents have a role. Tom mentioned get out from in front of the TV. I think our families need to step up to some of that role in keeping our students physically active in their home lives as well.
Thank you, everyone. What do you view as your role in addressing parent constituent concerns around student achievement?
Say that again, one more time.
What do you view as your role in addressing parent constituent concerns around student achievement?
It's very important. I think that's one of the biggest jobs of a school board member, because that's the best way to get a feedback whether the system is working or not. I would take any parent with any concern very seriously. And as a parent myself, I also have my own fears, which is my children. But that concern would be at the highest level to me. I make sure that I investigate, I research, and compare notes with my own, and make sure that something's done.
I see myself on the board as a voice for the public, as a voice for the district. I don't represent my views. I don't represent my particular family's views. I represent the views of the community that I live in. I think it's essential that parents take responsibility for their children's education and get involved. And that may mean voicing concerns to members of the school board. And I would welcome the opportunity to engage with parents, and I've done that already, going out and talking, hearing what some of the concerns are of the parents to make sure that I have an idea of what are the needs of District 77. And I would ensure that the community has that voice. Not just Mankato, North Mankato, Madison Lake, and Eagle Lake as well. And I think that's the role of the board members, to be a voice for the public.
I believe that parents need to be advocates for their children. They are the person or people who know that child best, and it is their obligation and their responsibility to advocate for their child. We have parent-teacher conferences which provide an opportunity for parents to do that. Teachers are available for phone calls and emails. I know teachers spend a great deal of time in contact with parents when parents make that request. There is a chain of command for parents if they are not happy with the answers they get from their classroom, their students' classroom teachers. And if necessary, it's appropriate that they follow that chain of command. But they are the frontline advocates for their children.
I guess I would think that we would be approachable, and the fact that when people have concerns, there's usually a reason. And coming from the teacher perspective, a lot of times you are the buffer between what could be a problem and what could be a solution. And a lot of times the teachers really are observing quite a lot of friction at times. And a lot of it is not anybody's fault. A lot of it is just kind of the way things are. I mean, there's frustrations on many different levels when you have a child with special needs or without special needs.
Sarah?
I agree with Judy that the parent is the primary advocate, and that the role of a board member is to set the policy and to set the processes in place and to hire the right leader so that all of those things can then be executed in a really effective way. But that at the end of the day, every parent is responsible for making sure that their child's needs are being met. And if their child's needs are not being met, that we do have some processes in place to address that, starting with the teacher. If that's not effective, bringing in the administrator. If that's not effective, contacting the superintendent, so that everybody all the way along has a chance to step up and do what's needed for every student. But that as a board member, my role is really to set the policy and the processes. And it's interesting that this question assumes that there are lots of questions from parents. I rarely get questions about achievement from parents. That is not, when parents have concern, it's about a lot of different, but not often about that. And so I hope that means that people are following that process. Sorry.
Thanks. Thank you.
There are a lot of things that have already been said about the processes and the procedures that we have in place. I would just like to add a couple things to that. We have several committees that parents sit on that bring forward information as well as study information about curriculum and assessment that are going on in our district. I think to add to the things that have been said, I think a board member's role might also include being assistive to that parent in finding what steps they can take. There's an open door policy, certainly with all board members. Our information is public knowledge on how to contact us, as well as all of our administrators have open door policies if a parent has a concern with regard to the achievement that their student is making, behavior that the parent might be concerned about, whether it's staff behavior or student behavior. I would like to think that our district has that open door policy and that the board is assistive with parents in finding those doors when they need them.
I'm just going to expand on a little bit more about when you talk about student achievement. I think parents' concerns are even a little bit broader than that. I mean, the expectation that parents have is that our kids will be safe, that we transport to and from school in a safe manner, that the buildings are clean, that they get proper nutrition. All those things play into, I think, a parent's concern about the child. It's not just in the classroom. Mrs. Amoroso put together a booklet about our annual report on curriculum, instruction, and student achievement that's available to anybody in our school district. And we do take a parent survey that I'll put out here afterwards if everyone wants to look at it, that asks 11 different questions. And the Mankato School District receives very high marks from both the elementary and the secondary level in almost every single category. I think the lowest mark is an 86, and I would say 90% or more of all the questions are at 98% or higher. So those are, I think, measures and tools that we look at as well as not only just student achievement.
Thank you all. Dad? As the Mankato Public Schools and community become more diverse and multicultural, how should the schools strike a balance between welcoming diversity and maintaining and transmitting traditional American culture and values?
I said this last forum as well. I think I had this question to first start off my last forum. So culture is a resource. Culture is amazing. Culture allows us to do a lot of things. I'm very proud to live in a community where we embrace culture, where we have the opportunity to get to know one another. If I heard the question correctly, it's how do we strike a balance between culture and traditional American values? I think the balance is that we need to be respectful. I think that's one of the district's core values is respect. And by doing that, we create a culture of respect. And we create a culture that our students can thrive in. And to not make it the issue of culture, because culture is a resource and culture is something that we need to embrace as a community, because it's here and it continues to grow.
I agree with what Dad said. I think we need to remember that we all have different cultural heritages that have helped form who we are and inform who we are. And we need to be open to the resources, the ideas that all other cultures bring, whether they are cultures that are recent to Mankato or cultures that have been here for many, many years. I think that we are richer, we are smarter, we are happier, and we are inspired by all the different cultures that we're exposed to, and we need to keep an open mind and an open heart with all of the differences that we have in our community.
All right, I'm going to quote Eminem. I seriously am. I don't care if you're black, white, gay, straight, tall, short, old, young, fat, or thin. You be nice to me, and I'll be nice to you. And it's as simple as that. In a lot of the schools in Minneapolis, there's just a plain slogan of be nice. Because when it all comes down to it, we're all going to be a little different. And yes, we do have to open up our hearts and be tolerant of everybody's differences.
Sarah?
I believe it's a gift. The diversity we have in our community is a gift to every student. The question implies that the diversity and the balance between diversity and tradition sort of are on opposite ends of a spectrum, and I do not believe they are on opposite ends of the spectrum. The tradition of our country is that people are living here and more people come and move in, and they bring with them new language, new ideas, new ways of doing things, and the way we can keep our own identities and blend together builds the richness of our community, and the more exposure our kids have, the better they are for it.
The core values that our school district has includes integrity, respect, excellence, adaptability, responsibility, engagement, collaboration. It takes all of those core values and all of the people in this room, in this community, to develop the wonderful culture that we know as Mankato Area Public Schools. It's the strength of each one of those individuals and their uniqueness that allow us to understand what's going on in our small little place in this whole planet. I think that the culture and the diversity of our entire community has made our students more of a global trotter, if you want to call them that. Students who've had the opportunity to be with people who are different than them allows them a more open and more broad-minded view of people. It is a struggle. Should we embrace more of this and more of that? I don't think we'll ever have that particular clear answer, but it's what makes the Mankato Area Public Schools the community that it is.
I'm going to take a little different spin on the question, because I think the question was balancing the welcoming of new cultures versus our traditions that Americans have. And I don't think that that's a student issue. I think that's an adult issue. Kids can handle anything that we throw at them. They are an open book, and if we close the cover on them, then we've done them a disservice.
I agree with Tom that whatever the adults do at home, that's how the children they follow. And America is a country of immigrants, and they've always been, and it will be. Nothing is going to change. But sometimes there are some fear when there's a new group, new arrivals come. That's human tendency, but it will always improve. Bring more diversity is the strength of America, and that's not going to change. And the American principles and how the system works, we're always going to be the same. We have to welcome those who are different than us, speak a different language, and that's where our strength comes, and renewal comes from. And it would be boring if everybody was the same.
Thank you. Go back to Sarah. Are you there for us?
Right there, Sarah.
Make sure I have it for you.
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. I'm going to have you start this one then. Many school districts will be facing budget cuts in the coming years. What are some areas where Mankato could make cuts if needed?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Did you hear the question? Would you like me to repeat it?
I did hear the question. I was hoping someone else would get to go first.
Sorry.
That is a challenging question collaboratively with all school leadership, with the district administration, and the full community to make those kinds of decisions. I honestly cannot sit here and say this can be cut or that can be cut, because that's sort of a narrow way of looking at our budget, and that's not the big picture way that has been successful for us in the past. So I can't answer this question better than that, but that I believe in the process that we have in place so that the right decisions get made to benefit the students and the staff and the community.
We do have a process in place, and that's to have the conversation with our entire community about what direction and what should we do in the public schools. There's kind of a common phrase that we all hear, and that's, I don't want to do anything that will take away from the students. Everything we do is about the students. Absolutely every single thing that happens in any of our buildings or in any of our community affects the students. The policy and the procedure that we have in place is to have the open conversation, with our community and with our staff and with our departments and say, what can we do? Our district is extremely fiscally responsible, and I do not fear that kind of thing if it comes to the board, that budget adjustment. I don't fear that because it is such a collaborative process that we will understand at the end. I also agree with Sarah. There's nothing that we can just cut out. Not at all, until we have the conversation with our community.
Budget cuts or budget adjustments, however you want to frame it, hasn't been on our mind for the last couple of years. We took steps several years ago to make the judgments in preparation of what we felt was coming down the road. And I think our assessment of what's here now was accurate. So right now we're in a good place. I won't say that we're in a great place, but we're not having to talk about budget cuts at this particular point. Sarah said very well, to actually pinpoint something and for me to give you saying, I think this could be cut, would be really unfair to whatever I'm talking about and to myself, because without looking at the entire budget, getting some feedback from the administrators and all people involved in programs just wouldn't be fair. So I don't have an answer for you if you're looking for a specific item.
And I'm glad to hear that the incumbent is saying there's a process in place. And I'm glad you spoke before me. We'll use that process, of course, but if it hadn't come down to making cuts, I'd rather find funding than making cuts. So I would rather help the board, find funding than make cuts, and that's my approach.
Currently, we're all living in rough economic times, to say the least. Fiscal responsibility has taken on a whole new meaning for everyone, not just school districts, not just companies, not just the households. I think that when it comes to making tough decisions, I agree that we can't just say, this has got to go, this has got to go, this has got to go. I don't think that's the most appropriate way to keep our children's interests at hand. My philosophy when those tough decisions are being made is a cost-benefit analysis, and to really take the time and to also hear from the administrators, the people we put in charge, but also the community. What does the community expect? And like Avni says, what are some alternative ways that we can solve this? I'm not in favor of just slash and burn at the expense of our children, which nothing else matters in our community than the education of our children. I can't see us cutting and slashing and that way. So I'm also glad that we have this process where we can go through and make educated decisions.
Tom is correct when he says that we anticipated to some extent the direction the economy was going, and we made large budget cuts several years ago and are not anticipating having to make any in the near future. However, I remember the last time we made budget cuts, a room full of people in the cafeteria at West High School, sitting around small tables and brainstorming ideas. These were groups of community members, school employees. It was open to the public. brainstorming ideas about how to look at the budget, about how to consider additional resources, places we could go to help support us. And it was a very collaborative process. So the process that we have in place is inclusive and it does work.
I've always kind of wondered why we would have to arm wrestle over this pot of money. That a person like me who has done gambling and is given tons of tax money, why are we forced to kind of scurry around for this extra money? And I would probably like to know more about how to get back to the state and start getting under their skin and saying, if we have more students, we have more kids per diem, then why are we fighting amongst ourselves for that small pot of money? And, you know, I think if we are gonna have to make cuts, that teachers are working awfully hard. And that's my goal, to be that voice for the teachers, to say the teachers are working at a feverish pace. They're doing their best.
I'd like to use my time. I'd like to say a little bit more about budget considerations in the school district. Over 80% of our budget is about people. We talk about program cutting or specific things that we've cut out of our district. But over 80% of our budget is about people. We are a collective bargaining district. That question came up last night at another forum. Would we, as a board member, be supportive of that collective bargaining system? And we are. And I think every single one of us sitting at the table last night was in agreement with that. So I think it's important for us to keep in mind that not only do we consider the kinds of programming and the kinds of educational opportunities we provide for students, we also take into serious consideration the financial health and wealth of all of our staff that work in this district.
I'm going to use my moderator note card. And I'm going to pull out a question that I'd like to get the answer to. Do you believe the current strategic planning roadmap needs adaptation? And if so, in what way? What will be your role in relation to that strategic roadmap going forward?
Right now, I think that the strategic roadmap is working well for us. It is a 5-year roadmap, and the expectation is that we will continually revisit it in incremental periods of time and make the adjustments that we need to make in light of the information that we have at that time. We use community resources, we use data that we've gathered from student achievement, we use a variety of resources, and it would be, as a board member, it would be my responsibility to see that we follow that process of reevaluation periodically and making adjustments to the roadmap. The roadmap was developed by a broad cross-section of community members, and if we make adjustments, we would want to revisit with that group what those adjustments should be.
I have not had a chance to really explore the roadmap that the district has developed, so I'm going to let it go on to Sarah because I don't have much to contribute there.
Sarah, are you there? Sarah? Okay.
The roadmap we have in place right now was developed several years ago. And just in the last year, it's really become a living, breathing document that we use. Prior to that, it was in development. Then it took time to get buy-in, and now we're really using it, and it's a really flexible
the strategic plan is to support what it is right now. We have used it in a variety of ways. We've used it in aligning curriculum from one side of town to the other side of town. We've looked at English, social studies, math, a variety of other subjects that needed to be aligned. We've used it in a method to help staff members focus on new things or more direct focus on staff development. I think that the document will change, as do all things in all of our lives. And my role as a board member in that process would be to be actively involved in that change and in that discussion. When we developed this a number of years ago, all the board members were actively involved in that open conversation with other community members. And we found it interesting and intriguing to hear other people's perspectives on the school district. So right now, very much in support of it, participate as we change it and address it.
I truly believe in the change roadmap that the school district has. It is a document or a plan that is ever changing. It's never concrete, set in stone, because it changes as our needs change and as each individual site needs change. As a school board member, I think we have a responsibility to monitor those results, to give guidance and direction, and then also to challenge the results. To say, is this really the best you can do? Are you getting on the bus in the right way? I think that's what our responsibility is. Sometimes it's not a comfortable discussion, but that's our job. And not to maybe stretch people beyond what they think they can do. So that's how I think role of board membership.
If I'm elected as a board member, is one of the reasons I'm running to have an opportunity to affect positive change in that strategic roadmap that's already in place, and do it in a way that will make our students and our district competitive on a global level. Whether it's a new technology, new way of accessing students, or new way of targeting underperforming students. And that would be an opportunity I would use, to help in positive fashion. There's nothing, you cannot stay idle in any place. You have to always be able to improve.
As a military officer, it's been my job to ensure that missions are carried out. Part of that job is to make sure we're carrying them out as we plan. With that role, it comes a constant evaluation of, are we still headed where we planned? What has changed? What are the differences? What new intangible variables have come about that we need to now have a plan B for? That has been a strength of mine in my tenure in the military, and I see my role as similar on the board in that continuing to ask that question, where are we going? How are we getting there? Are there better ways to do this? And part of the answer comes from you, the community, and getting your feedback into some of those things as well, because it's a shared mission. It's a shared vision. It's a shared vision for our children.
Thank you, everyone. I'm getting a wild card too. Bring back two questions from the audience. What do you think about developing a larger parent volunteer program in the school district, where it would be common to see parents in the halls, classrooms, and engaged in more aspects of schools and school life? What do you think about developing a larger parent volunteer program?
If the parents are willing to come in, great. I wouldn't see why anybody would say, hey, let's not have them come in and help out and be a part of the learning process. I think that a lot of times that if you were a teacher, that you would have the parents have a specific role of what they're doing. As an educator, if you had a certain curriculum, that you would take their questions about what you're teaching or what you're learning about at a time to maybe have sort of collaborative type of teaming session, because you probably don't want just a parent to have free reign over what is going on. But hey, it would be great to have more parents in the lunchroom, in the hallways, supporting the mission of the schools. So.
Yes, Sarah?
Sarah, did you hear the question?
regulating parent influence. Investment, I repeat, even schools, we're working in the playground.
Try holding the microphone straight up and down like this against the speaker.
It's the connection that's the problem.
Oh, it
Not
is.
The
this.
connection's just kind of wavering. We're not hearing you very clearly, Sarah.
It's very good for the technology.
Yes. You can round up, yes.
Are you there, Sarah?
Yeah, I think we've lost you. Why don't we continue on and we can come back for,
Okay.
we'll check.
Parents are always welcome in our buildings. There's not, oops. I'm going to take this one, Sarah, we'll come back to you. I'll let you fiddle with it. Parents are always welcome in our school buildings. I think it's important for us to remember that our school buildings are open very, very early in the morning with childcare and are open later in the afternoon and early evening for childcare. The parents in our community are extremely involved in other things and rely on our school district to take care of the student and to assist that student through their day. There's not an administrator or a teacher, I think, in this district that would not welcome an army of parents coming through. But the recognition is that those parents are so engaged in other things that they do allow us the opportunity to be with their students. If we can find a way to bring our parents in, I think that would be wonderful. Our parents are engaged in earning a living for their families. Yes, go.
Developing a larger parent volunteer program, my answer would be depends. What would they do? And more importantly, is it going to be benefiting the students? That's, to me, the real question. Again, as I agree with Ann, parents are always welcome. I think we can always use parents at booster clubs, lunchroom activities. It doesn't matter. I think we find a way, but it has to be in a way that benefits the student. When I first started 4 years ago, that was one of my issues, I guess, if you want to call it that, is that I didn't think we had enough parent engagement. I think that there's a lot of parents out there, and I'm not going to say all of them, but are not involved in their students' education. And I, quite frankly, don't know how to get them engaged. We've tried technology, making it easy for them to communicate with the schools, get access to their student grades. That, I think, is a big boost. But I'm wondering if the parent engagement is going to have to come through the student instead of us trying to engage them this way down.
Yeah, I think that parent involvement is very important, and we should use it when it's appropriate and it's necessary. You know, the main, as Tom said, the main goal is to make sure that the students are learning at the highest level possible. But there are ways that we can use the parents and get them involved in many activities. I've been to many PTOs, and they're always struggling to find parents who are willing to volunteer for events. And that's also positive for the parents. It's a learning experience, especially those families who are new to the American way of life, who came from refugee background, from Somalia and Sudan. We should give them an opportunity to get involved and see how America operates. And, you know, instead of coming from a regressive social, systems, show them that this is an open system, and make them be part of the big picture. And we can learn from them, they can learn from us.
The research is very clear that suggests that the more involved parents are in their children's education, the more successful our kids will be. Unfortunately, we live in a culture that some view education as something that is done to our children. It's, oh, the school will take care of that. The teacher can take care of that. My view is that education is something we do with our children. It's a culture that I wanted to foster here in District 77, to get more parental involvement. Again, the research is clear. The more involved parents are, the more successful our students will be. And we need to foster a community that does support parental involvement. And I would make that a priority if I'm elected to the board.
Parent involvement is, can be a wonderful thing for both the parent and the students in the classroom where the volunteering is taking place. As has been mentioned, some PTOs really struggle to find parent volunteers who are willing to come in, and some schools have more success with that. Often parents are willing to come in and volunteer for one thing rather than on a regular weekly basis, and there are opportunities for parents to do that. But our parents are very busy. Many of our families have 2 working parents in the family, and getting into the schools can be a challenge. Parents, I think, are most comfortable in volunteering in the schools that their children attend. But if there were somebody who wanted to try and coordinate that on a wider basis, I would be open to hearing that idea.
Okay. I'm going to be Sarah for just a moment, because her sound is kind of coming in and out, but she's able to type. So she wrote what she wants me to say, so I'm Sarah. For the next 20 seconds. Elementary schools have lots of parent volunteers. Read the newsletters and see all the ways parents are involved. I would be interested in more discussion with parents in 7th grade to help parents make the adjustment to how to be engaged to help their student and help the school. That can be a difficult transition from elementary to secondary. We'll go back to me again. Hello. This is loads of fun. All right, last question. This will be our wrap-up question for the evening. So you only get 30 seconds on this one. I know 30 seconds just goes like that. Just put it in. You can skip the yellow line. Just right there, right now. All right. So all the incumbents are running for re-election, and they're being challenged by some impressive candidates. If you are an incumbent, why should voters keep you? If you are a challenger, why should a voter elect you over an incumbent? And we'll start with Tom on this one.
All right. Why should the general public elect Tom Rexton? I'm passionate about learning. I'm passionate about having people succeed, and that's students as well as staff, because it all works together in this particular school district. If you elect me, I'm confident that I will do my best. I'll give the time that's necessary for this particular position. When I first ran, I was surprised at the amount of time it took, but I'm also surprised at how rewarding the job was. So I would very much enjoy being re-elected.
There are many things I'm passionate about education, but since I don't have the time, I'm going to mention one. And it's very critical, and it's early childhood education. And I would like to see a district that really increases importance for early childhood education. And there was a recent research that was done in Minneapolis, and Somali families are doing as well as English speakers because they go to early childhood, schools for their children, and parents are involved. So that's something I would emphasize, and I would be very passionate about if I'm elected.
Fortunately, Mankato is not losing this election no matter what happens. So that's a good thing. What I would bring is I would bring a voice to the young parents, to the parents of our school districts, to have that voice on the board. I'm dedicated, absolutely dedicated to ensuring that our students remain the #1 priority in what we do. There's nothing else that matters. I'm committed to seeing this thing through. Absolutely committed. When I set my mind on something, I do it till the end. I'm experienced in a lot of different ways. It is my first run at the school board, but I bring experience from a couple different capacities. And I'm also a proven leader. Being a military officer has been the most rewarding experience to me, to guide soldiers in the battlefield, coming home, and through everything. And I think those kind of leadership skills will translate well into the district to ensure that we're continuing on the path that we are on, which is the path of excellence.
Having been a parent of students in the district, having been a teacher in the district, and having been an administrator in the district, I think gives me a unique perspective on how the district works, how different audiences view what happens in the district and how to engage different audiences in the discussions involved around the district. And so I think that while each board member does bring and should bring a unique perspective, that's my unique perspective. And as I said, I'm on a journey. Being on the school board is a journey, and I haven't reached the end of my journey yet. I'd like to be able to continue.
As a special ed teacher, I like to bring out the positives, all right? Tom, I really like your directness. I think that serves our board very well. Abdi, I like your passion for your different cultures. Thad, your service and your tenaciousness I appreciate. Judy, I love your openness. And Anne, I was going to say your graciousness and your, I don't know what else did I write. Sorry, I can't remember, but your graciousness. And Sarah, you have a diverse background, and I really appreciate your early childhood education. And me, you'll get to know me.
I attempted to send a message home. Perfect time, just as it gets started. Okay. As an incumbent, I have the knowledge and experience to lead our district through tough decisions in coming years. We have an effective, award-winning board that is relatively young. The work I'm doing on early childhood is just now effective, and now is the time to let me leverage my experience and relationships to accomplish even more. Timing was just perfect. I was just about to give up. And I came. So thanks a lot, Sarah, if you can hear me.
We have a leader in our district who has always admonished me and given me the saying, good gets in the way of great. And I think our school board that we have right now, incumbents, myself included, understands that good can get in the way of great. And I think this board will continue to make this a great district. I think back to our question about parent involvement. 20 years ago, I was the PTO mom who came into Washington Elementary School. And 20 years since, I'm the chair of the board. I find that incredibly intriguing that I've made that kind of path for myself. No matter if I stay on the school board, I'll never leave education. I just never will. So I would encourage you to give me your vote this time. Let us go on with the mission that we have.
Thank you all, and a special thank you to the ladies, Ann and Jody, for your help with the technology. Appreciate it.
You've done real well over here.
Well, that brings tonight's forum to a conclusion. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. The questions that you submitted, I think, for the most part, we used audience questions this evening, which is great. Hopefully they answered your questions. I want to remind you of the election on the 8th. It is important. There are 4 seats that are open. And in a school board election, it's not a race between 1 or 2 or 3 people. It's 8 people that are vying for 4 open seats. So the top vote getters will be those folks that will serve this district, our kids, and you on our next school board. So I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for being engaged. You can learn more about the candidates on our website, greatermankato.com, where you can see their profiles, answers to their questions. And as I said in our last forum, I truly want to thank the candidates, incumbents, those who are running for the first time. It's a really noble thing to serve your community as an elected official. And so to all of these individuals that are here, and Sarah, who took an extra effort to join us electronically this evening, thanks to all of them. Let's give them a round of applause.